What's up, you guys? It's your girl Love Ashe back at you with another video. This is for my Libra and Libra risings for your month of April intuitive message. Let's go ahead and dive in. Take a deep breath, friend. For real. Libra, take a deep breath with me. You guys have been fighting silent battles. You've been fighting inwardly, deeply, silently. So Libra, April, it's not about clarity from the outside in the month of April. It's not about signs and synchronicities and angel numbers and all these things that are amazing. It's about the internal shift that's already happening within you, the one that you've been ignoring because it doesn't fit neatly into logic or you can't put a language to it. And so this month is an emotional surgery. And we do have a full moon in your sign this month. So this is like an energetic cleansing, a soul detox. And it's not going to feel like cookies and cream. It's going to feel like a mirror. Because the truth is, Libra, you guys have been suppressing things, emotions, desires, truths, pain. Not because you're fake, okay? Not because you're weak, but because you were trying to keep things together, trying to make it work, trying to be the balance. But balance isn't about keeping everything in place. Balance is about knowing when to release what's tipping your scale, okay? April is the month you stop carrying what you were never meant to hold, and that includes the weight of other people's emotions, their guilt, their projections, their expectations, their silence. You've been loyal to confusion, Libra, to memories, to hope, to potential. But this version of you that's rising now, she's loyal to her clarity, to her body, to her peace. And there's been a slow unraveling, like you've been seeing it, you've been feeling it, but still waiting on proof that it's time to let go. Here is your confirmation. This message right here from your girl Love Ashe. It's time, baby. You don't need to explain why you feel exhausted. You don't need to debate why you identify a red flag in someone or something. You don't need to wait for the final boss or the final betrayal for it to make sense. Like, oh my God, I always knew they were my op. Oh my God, now I have clarity. I can cut them off. You're not going to get that, Libra. This month is showing you what's real and exactly what's been draining you behind the scenes. And let's talk about behind the scenes energy, okay? Because some of y'all have been under spiritual pressure, not attacked, right? But like spiritual pressure, not attack in a way people like to make it sound dramatic, right? But like suppression, like foggy thoughts, doubts that don't feel like yours, moments of emotional shutdown when you were doing just fine a second ago. But this spiritual interference that you guys are experiencing right now, it didn't do what they thought it would do. Okay? Some of y'all are literally being, targeted, okay, by a specific individual. Maybe you already know who this is. Like, aha, gotcha, bitch. Maybe you don't know who this is. Maybe this is beyond, human being, okay? It's on the spiritual plane, okay? You're fighting, battles with your ancestors, okay? You're fighting in the unseen. But here's what they didn't expect, though. You're still listening. You're still discerning. You're still moving even in the fog. It's like Neptunian. And now the fog is clearing, right? Neptune and Aries. And the clarity that's coming in for you, it's unbelievable. This month, you will see people clearly. You will hear what they're really saying, even when their words sound super nice and caring. You're gonna feel what's been hidden underneath the surface, and you won't unsee it. It's like there's no going back from this. And this is real alignment, though, because when your body, your intuition, and your logic all start pointing in the same direction, and there's no more denial, no more tolerating, almost, no more giving access to people who can't meet you where you are, which is living in your truth. This is the version of you that's being resurrected after like this long emotional winter. And she doesn't beg, she doesn't perform, she doesn't prove. She just chooses peace, and she lets everything else elevate, adjust, or exit. So let me pause here and ask you guys, who or what in your life do you feel like you just can't tolerate them anymore? Who or what in your life? I really want you to think about that. It's just something about them that annoys your soul. You can't quite put your finger on it, but something's just off about them. That's your spirit speaking to you, and you guys need to listen. So there's someone or something that you've been emotionally attached to that no longer holds space for the real you. That's what I'm getting with that, like, it, you've been knowing it, but there's still a part of you that's trying to hold on to this fantasy, this hope, this maybe. But let me ask you, Libra, how many times do you need to feel let down before you believe your own disappointment? How many chances do you need to give before you realize they're not growing? They're just not getting better. The only thing they're getting better at is apologizing. And that's the part that hurts, I know. You didn't want it to end this way. You wanted the version of them that existed in your highest hope, but that version only existed in your mind. Okay, friend? And it's not your job to stay loyal to a fantasy while your spirit is starving for reciprocity. This month, Libra, you're going to see clearly who's been real and who's just been kind of convenient, who supports you when you're not performing the version of you that they're comfortable with, that makes them happy, who checks in when they don't need anything, just they really want to know how's it going, who can sit with your truth without them making it about you, making it about them. Pay attention to who starts acting distant once you stop overgiving or stop oversharing. Pay attention to who goes silent once you start to set those boundaries, because this is the kind of emotional audit that creates your new standard. Some of you guys have relationships in your life right now that are built on old trauma bonds, on unspoken contracts where your role was to keep the peace, hold the weight, carry the projections, be the safe space, even when they weren't that for you. That ends now. You're not responsible for teaching grown people how to treat you. You've already modeled that enough through your actions, and if they still choose to ignore that blueprint, that's on them. You've outgrown emotional labor that doesn't come with emotional safety. And I know you may still feel connected to them. Soul ties are real. But so is liberation. And every time you honor your boundaries, the tie loosens. Every time you return to your truth instead of their manipulation, the bond weakens. Every time you choose silence over explaining yourself to someone, your power grows. You don't have to hate them to let them go, Libra. You don't have to prove they were wrong. You just have to tell the truth and move accordingly. Some of y'all are holding on to people out of guilt, out of feeling bad for leaving them, out of feeling bad for choosing yourself. You feel bad for seeing the truth and walking in it. But guilt is not a spiritual sign. Guilt is an emotional residue left behind by people who benefited from your self-neglect. Damn. Libra, you don't owe them your joy. You don't owe them your old self. You're not abandoning anyone by choosing alignment, by choosing ascension. You're returning to yourself. And yeah, they're going to feel it. They're going to notice the shift, the pullback, the lack of access. And some may even try to return this month, so to speak. Don't fall for that shit. They're not coming back because they've changed. They're coming back because your energy is different and they can feel that door closing as it should. Because what's ahead for you, you need space, emotional space, mental space, energetic space. And they were filling that space with chaos. And you can't build peace and tolerate confusion at the same damn time. You got to choose. And if you've been choosing everyone else for too long, you kind of get your priorities mixed up, where you're focused on their comfort, their feelings, and their needs. And now it's your turn. I don't want to go too long on you guys' this message, but let's talk about power a little bit here. That word is just all in your reading for April. And not power in the way like the world defines it, not titles and statuses and performance. And I'm talking about like quiet and grounded and like non-negotiable power. That's the kind of power that you guys are embodying. Like, it's non-negotiable. Like, don't even ask, bitch. The kind that doesn't need like to raise their voice. Like, I said what I said. That's it. Have a great day. The kind that doesn't need approval. It's just kind of like, this is what it is. And I think you forgot you had that already, Libra. You forgot you had that. And you forgot you had it because you spent so much time adjusting to everyone else's expectations that you lost sight of your own center. You've been shape-shifting and making sure that energy is smooth, keeping everything neutral and balanced. But that kind of peacekeeping is expensive, baby. And you're done paying for it. In fact, you can't even afford to keep paying for that type of peace. Okay? This is the month you take your power back. Manipulation doesn't always look evil. That's what people need to understand. It doesn't always look evil. Sometimes it looks like emotional guilt. It looks like, hey, you've changed. You've been too busy for me. Sometimes it shows up as like someone trauma dumping on you and saying that things could have been different if you were available, or if I could be more like you. We're not doing that anymore. And the reason it worked for so long is because a part of you still needed that approval, still needed to be liked. You still needed someone to say, man, you're doing the right thing. But that part of you, that's the part that you've been working on and you've been shedding, because now you know power isn't about being right. It's about being in alignment. When you're aligned, you don't owe anyone anything. And you're entering a season where your clarity is going to offend people who were used to you being confused. Wow, I just got another download as I'm talking about this for a collective message. I think a lot of the chosen ones are getting clarity. I just saw the Ace of Swords in my mind's eye. But they liked you better when you were unsure. They liked you better when you were explaining every move, every shift, every decision, because your doubt gave them control over you. Your self-abandonment gave them access. But now you're asking better questions. Now you're pausing before you say yes. And now you're not so easy to manipulate. And with that growth comes a mirror. Right? Remember we talked about that? A mirror, a real one, because now you get to ask yourself, who am I without the guilt, without the emotional labor, without needing to be needed? Who the fuck am I without doing all of those things? Because for some of you, your identity was built around saving people. Being the one everyone could lean on, the calm in the storm, the fixer, the helper, the one who always has it together. But that version of you was performing under pressure. That version of you was built in survival. That version of you was over-functioning to feel safe. And our spirit is saying you don't have to perform anymore. You don't have to hold all the pieces together to be worthy. You don't have to keep showing up for people who never ask how you're doing. You don't have to wear the mask of, I'm fine, just to avoid disappointing people. You're allowed to be real. You're allowed to be messy, Libra. You're allowed to fall the fuck apart and rebuild on your own terms. And you know what else? You're allowed to start over. The idea you pushed aside because life got in the way, it's coming back. That version of you who used to dream without fear, she's waking back up, okay? A lot of you guys have that creative gift, that business plan, that spiritual path that you put on pause for someone else's comfort. Yeah, it's time to pick that shit back up, because the world needs what you've been sitting on. You've been giving all your energy to people who don't value it. And now it's time to reinvest in yourself. If you've been dealing with a lot of doubt, blockages, lack of direction, it's not because you're unqualified. It's because your energy's scattered. You're trying to build your future at the same time. While building this future, you're trying to stay emotionally entangled with the past. You're trying to launch a new version of yourself while still keeping these old contracts alive. And that's why it felt cloudy. That's why things weren't moving. That's why the inspiration would come and go. This is like your personal reintroduction. And you don't need an audience. You're not rebuilding from scratch, though. You're rebuilding from wisdom now. From truth, from deeper clarity, from spiritual maturity. And this time, it's not about being impressive. This time, it's not about people pleasing. It's about simply just honoring your path. You're not blocked. You're not missing anything. You are just in the process of recalibration. Spirit had to shift first, like with your relationships. There had to be a reset. Boundaries had to be rewritten because you've trained your nervous system to expect struggle. So when peace finally shows up, you question it. When the right person comes along, you might want to push them away. When the opportunities are aligning perfectly, you're like, no way. But this month is going to show you how deeply you've been programmed to question your own fucking joy. And this month is going to ask you to unlearn that response. You don't have to sabotage what's aligned just because the past made you distrust peace. You don't have to wait for the shoe to drop. You don't have to keep checking the mirror to make sure you're enough to receive what's already yours. You are ready right now. And it's not because you're perfect. It's not because you're honest. It's not because you help so many people. It's because you have owned your truth. And because you spent your whole life surviving, abundance can feel like a threat, you know? But now you're learning how to live without explaining your joy, to live without hiding your light, live without shrinking, to keep the peace. Don't fight that shit. Don't fight it. April is going to make things so undeniably clear for you. And I love that so much. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stop here. Y'all let me know in the comments how this resonates. I'm super interested to see how this energy is manifesting for my Libras. And I'll talk to y'all next time. Bye.